Drake just turned the entire rap industry upside down in one night. But here's the bigger question. Was this a legendary comeback, or the clearest sign yet that the pressure finally got to him? On May 15, 2026, Drake shocked the music world by releasing 3 surprise albums at once. Iceman, Habibi, and Maid of Honor. 43 songs. No warning. No traditional rollout. No interviews building hype. Just an overnight flood of music packed with direct shots at former friends, rivals, athletes, producers, and industry power players. And this wasn't random. For 2 years, Drake had been carrying the fallout from his public war with Kendrick Lamar. The internet crowned Kendrick the winner back in 2024. Drake became the punchline. Memes spread everywhere. Not Like Us became unavoidable. TikTok clips, reaction channels, sports arenas, clubs, and even political rallies somehow found ways to play the song. It stopped feeling like a diss track and started feeling like a cultural moment Drake could never fully escape. For the first time in his career, Drake looked vulnerable. And maybe that was the real problem. For more than 15 years, Drake had built his reputation on dominance. Album after album, chart after chart, he stayed untouchable. He mastered streaming. He mastered hooks. He mastered emotional rap records and club hits at the same time. Younger artists copied his sound. Labels chased his formula. Fans treated every release like an event. But after Kendrick's attack, something changed. People began questioning whether Drake had finally lost control of the culture itself. That kind of pressure doesn't disappear quietly. So instead of fading away, Drake came back swinging at almost everyone he believed betrayed him during the worst public moment of his career. The real question is, did Drake just revive hip-hop competition, or expose how deeply those losses affected him? Because this wasn't just music. It sounded personal. From the opening tracks, Drake framed the albums almost like a courtroom case. The production felt cold, cinematic, and tense. Some songs sounded angry. Others sounded exhausted. A few even sounded paranoid. Every bar felt aimed at someone he believed crossed him, abandoned him, or stayed silent when he expected loyalty. Listeners immediately began dissecting every lyric online within minutes of release. Reddit threads exploded. YouTube breakdowns appeared overnight. Fans slowed down versus searching for hidden meanings. Who was Drake talking about? Which lines were factual? Which names were sneak disses? Which ones crossed the line completely? And maybe the biggest shock of all was realizing how many people Drake seemed angry with. One of the biggest targets was Rick Ross. That relationship once looked untouchable. For years, Drake and Ross represented luxury rap at its peak. They built massive records together, traveled together, and publicly praised each other in interviews. Fans viewed their partnership as one of the strongest alliances in modern hip-hop. But during the Kendrick feud, Ross publicly sided against Drake and even released diss records of his own. Drake clearly never forgot it. On Make Them Pay, Drake suggested Ross benefited heavily from his support and influence during the streaming era. Beneath the lyrics was a deeper accusation: "I helped elevate your relevance, and you turned against me the second public opinion shifted." That's not just rap competition. That's betrayal. And Ross wasted no time responding. Within hours of the album's dropping, Ross jumped onto Instagram calling Drake washed, and mocking the 3-project release strategy. He compared Drake's Iceman branding to his own upcoming project Set in Stone, basically implying Drake's empire is melting while his own legacy remains permanent. But here's what makes this interesting. Why did Ross respond so quickly? Was he genuinely offended, or did Drake expose tensions that had already existed behind the scenes for years? Because in the music industry, friendships often last only as long as mutual success. And once public perception changes, alliances can disappear overnight. DJ Khaled also caught direct criticism. DJ Khaled has spent years branding himself as hip-hop's ultimate connector. He celebrates loyalty publicly. He constantly talks about brotherhood, family, and supporting his circle. But during Drake's war with Kendrick, Khaled mostly stayed neutral. Drake interpreted that silence as betrayal. On multiple tracks, Drake questioned why certain people disappeared once controversy arrived. Without directly screaming Khaled's name every time, the message was obvious enough that listeners instantly connected the dots. And honestly, That says a lot about modern celebrity culture. In today's rap industry, silence can sometimes hurt relationships more than direct criticism. Public support has become currency. If someone doesn't defend you loudly enough online, people immediately notice. Drake's message to Khaled was essentially this: when I needed allies, you protected your business instead. What makes the situation even more fascinating is Khaled's response, or lack of one. Normally outspoken online, Khaled has remained unusually quiet since the albums dropped. No motivational speeches. No cryptic captions. Nothing. And sometimes silence speaks louder than any diss track ever could. Then came one of the most unexpected names, LeBron James. For years, Drake and LeBron publicly looked like genuine friends. They attended parties together, praised each other in interviews, and moved inside the same elite celebrity circles. Drake sat courtside at games. LeBron promoted Drake's music. Their friendship looked authentic. So when Drake suddenly questioned LeBron's loyalty and accused him of always switching teams, fans were stunned. The attack wasn't really about basketball. It was about loyalty. Drake appeared to suggest that LeBron, like many powerful figures in entertainment, aligns himself with whichever side benefits him most publicly. That's an explosive accusation when directed at one of the most influential athletes alive. And once again, LeBron stayed silent. Now ask yourself this: why are so many powerful people refusing to respond directly? Are they ignoring Drake intentionally, or carefully calculating their next move behind closed doors? Because sometimes responding only gives a situation more power. But sometimes silence confirms there's truth hidden underneath the accusation. And Drake kept going. The tension with A$AP Rocky may be the most personal feud of all. And everyone already knows why. At the center of this story is Rihanna. For years, Drake's connection with Rihanna fueled endless speculation online. Their chemistry appeared undeniable. Interviews, performances, award shows, emotional speeches. Fans constantly wondered whether they were truly in love or trapped in some complicated cycle neither could fully escape. Then everything changed. Rocky and Rihanna built a family together. They had children. They moved forward publicly while Drake remained tied to the history through old lyrics, interviews, and emotional records that fans still revisit today. On multiple songs across the new albums, Drake appeared to mock Rocky's relationship and question the support surrounding Rocky's career. But unlike some of the competitive disses aimed at rappers, these bars felt different. They sounded emotional. Almost wounded. And that's exactly why the internet became obsessed so quickly. People weren't just hearing rap beef anymore. They were hearing unresolved emotions buried underneath celebrity success. Was Drake strategically attacking opponents, or emotionally unloading years of resentment all at once? Because there's a difference between calculated aggression and visible frustration. And fans could hear both throughout these albums. Even J. Cole wasn't spared. Drake referenced Cole stepping away from the Kendrick conflict back in 2024 after briefly entering it with 7-minute drill. At the time, many fans respected Cole's decision to choose peace over endless conflict. Others saw it as retreat. Drake clearly falls into the second category. On one track, Drake suggested certain artists only preach peace when pressure becomes too real. Without fully naming Cole every second, the implication was obvious enough for listeners to understand immediately. And honestly, this may reveal the biggest theme behind all three albums. Drake feels abandoned. Not just attacked by rivals. Abandoned by people he once considered allies. That emotional thread connects almost every major diss across the project. Whether aimed at rappers, athletes, executives, or old collaborators, Drake repeatedly returns to the same idea: I stayed loyal, but nobody stayed loyal to me. And maybe that's why the albums instantly divided the internet. Some fans praised Drake for finally fighting back aggressively after years of humiliation. They viewed the trilogy as raw, honest, and fearless. To them, Drake sounded hungry again. Dangerous again. Focused again. Others heard something completely different. They heard bitterness. They heard obsession. They heard someone unable to move on from a public defeat that permanently damaged his image. And honestly, both interpretations might be true at the same time. Because fame changes people. When someone spends over a decade at the top of music, Losing public approval doesn't just hurt professionally. It hurts psychologically. Every headline becomes personal. Every meme becomes another reminder. Every silence from former friends starts feeling intentional. Imagine waking up every day knowing millions of people are debating whether your career is collapsing. How would anyone react to that kind of pressure? Drake's 3-album release almost feels like an attempt to reclaim control of the narrative before the culture completely moves on without him. And commercially, the strategy worked immediately. Streaming platforms crashed temporarily from traffic spikes. Social media timelines became completely dominated by reactions, theories, and lyric breakdowns. Whether people loved the music or hated it, everyone was talking about Drake again. Maybe that was the point all along. Because in modern entertainment, attention is power. And Drake understands attention better than almost anyone alive. Still, there's another question hiding underneath all of this. What happens next? Does Kendrick respond? Does LeBron finally address the accusations? Will Khaled break his silence? Will Rocky retaliate directly? Or will everyone stay quiet and let Drake continue speaking into the chaos alone? Because the silence surrounding these albums feels almost as important as the music itself. And perhaps that's what makes this moment so fascinating. This isn't just another rap beef anymore. It's a public unraveling of relationships, loyalty, ego, fame, and emotional survival inside an industry where almost nobody trusts each other completely. Drake may have reignited hip-hop competition in a way fans haven't seen for years. Or he may have accidentally revealed just how isolated life becomes at the top once the applause starts fading. Either way, one thing had become impossible to deny. The entire music industry was watching. Executives, artists, streamers, podcasters, retired rappers, sports celebrities, and millions of fans online were all staring at the same unfolding situation, trying to understand what Drake was really doing. Every lyric, every interview reference, every hidden message buried inside his albums was now being dissected like evidence in a courtroom. And whether people supported Drake, criticized him, mocked him, or secretly admired his willingness to keep fighting, the internet kept circling back to one massive question. Did Drake just begin the greatest comeback attempt of his entire career? Or was the world witnessing the moment the pressure finally became too heavy for him to carry? That uncertainty became the fuel behind the conversation. Because Drake's message throughout the rollout was surprisingly simple underneath all the aggression and chaos. I stayed in the fight while others walked away. To his supporters, that statement mattered. They saw an artist refusing to disappear after public humiliation. They saw resilience, survival, pride. In their eyes, Drake was trying to prove that taking damage publicly and continuing forward required more courage than quietly stepping back and pretending nothing happened. But critics heard something completely different. They heard obsession. They heard bitterness. And they heard a man still trapped inside a battle he could not emotionally leave behind. That difference in interpretation became the center of the entire debate. Was Drake rebuilding himself into a stronger version of his old identity? Or was he slowly exposing emotional cracks that had been hidden for years? Then came perhaps the boldest moment of all. Jay-Z. Going after Jay-Z was not just another rap diss. It carried a completely different weight. In hip-hop culture, Jay-Z represents more than music. He represents establishment power, business success, influence, long-term respect. To many people, he stands almost like rap royalty itself. That's exactly why Drake's decision shocked so many listeners. Instead of showing reverence, Drake openly questioned the value of Jay-Z's advice, mentorship, and cultural authority. He referenced the famous internet debate asking whether someone would rather take money or have dinner with Jay-Z, but Drake twisted the idea into something colder and more dismissive. The line exploded across social media within minutes. Reaction channels immediately uploaded breakdowns. Podcasts argued about it for hours. TikTok clips spread everywhere. Even people who normally ignored rap feuds suddenly started discussing whether Drake had crossed a dangerous line. But underneath the disrespect was an even bigger message hiding in plain sight. Drake no longer seemed interested in approval from hip-hop's older gatekeepers. That realization changed how many people interpreted the entire album. Because suddenly the project no longer felt like random disses aimed at random celebrities. It started feeling like a direct challenge against the power structure of modern hip-hop itself. And that leads directly to the real heart of this entire situation. Everything still connected back to Kendrick Lamar. Every grievance. Every accusation. Every emotional outburst. Every attempt to reclaim dominance. No matter how many people Drake targeted, Kendrick's shadow remained over the entire rollout like a storm cloud refusing to move. Drake's 2026 albums did not feel like separate creative projects anymore. They felt more like one giant emotional response to the humiliation he experienced during the Kendrick battle. Even when Drake attacked other artists, listeners could still hear traces of Kendrick inside the anger. That's what made the situation so psychologically fascinating. Drake repeatedly questioned Kendrick's authenticity. He questioned Kendrick's fan base. He questioned whether Kendrick's music would truly survive long-term at the same level people claimed. He challenged the idea that Kendrick permanently defeated him. But the more Drake spoke about Kendrick, the more one uncomfortable question continued growing online. If Drake truly moved on from Kendrick, why did he still sound so focused on him 2 years later? That single question divided the internet into two completely different camps. Some listeners believed Drake's aggression proved he was hungry again, motivated again, competitive again. To them, this looked like an artist refusing to accept defeat and rebuilding himself through confrontation. Others believed the nonstop disses revealed someone emotionally trapped inside a loss he never fully processed. And perhaps the strangest part of all? Maybe both sides were right. Because history has shown that some of the greatest artistic moments ever created came directly from wounded pride, humiliation, and obsession. Anger has always fueled creativity. Revenge has always fueled ambition. So was Drake collapsing emotionally? Or transforming pain into strategy? That question kept people watching. And the strategy itself was unlike anything hip-hop had seen before. Most artists respond to public defeat with one carefully designed diss track. Maybe two. Drake chose a completely different approach. Instead of delivering one focused attack, he released 43 songs targeting multiple people across the industry simultaneously. That number alone became part of the spectacle. 43 songs. Think about how unusual that really is. It created a feeling of total chaos around the industry. Every few days fans discovered another hidden lyric, another indirect shot, another celebrity being pulled into the conflict. The conversation never had time to die because there was always something new to discuss. And some analysts believe that may have been the entire point from the beginning. Because if only Kendrick responded, then the narrative stays centered on Drake losing to Kendrick. But if Rick Ross responds, A$AP Rocky responds, J. Cole becomes involved, LeBron gets mentioned, Jay-Z gets questioned, and other names continue entering the drama, suddenly the focus becomes fragmented. Now the industry itself becomes the battlefield. And Drake remains standing at the center of every conversation. Whether intentional or accidental, the strategy worked. People could not stop talking about him. Critics argued Drake spread himself too thin by attacking too many people at once. They believed the volume weakened the impact of individual disses. According to them, the project felt desperate rather than calculated. But supporters viewed it differently. They believed Drake brilliantly transformed the entire rap industry into one massive ongoing event. Every reaction became additional promotion. Every podcast debate extended the life of the albums. Every angry response pulled more attention back toward Drake himself. And in modern entertainment, attention has become one of the most valuable currencies on earth. Especially after so many critics predicted the Kendrick battle would permanently destroy Drake's dominance. That prediction clearly bothered him. Maybe more than he ever admitted publicly. Because Drake built his entire career around being untouchable commercially. Year after year, he dominated charts, streaming platforms, radio stations, playlists, and social media conversations. For over a decade, he existed almost like a permanent force inside popular culture. Then Kendrick changed the conversation. For the first time in years, people openly questioned Drake's position at the top. And perhaps Drake never truly forgave that feeling. What also fascinated fans was how carefully certain major figures responded afterward. Rick Ross stayed loud and aggressive, throwing jokes and insults constantly. Smaller artists rushed online hoping to benefit from the attention. Media personalities treated the entire situation like a reality television show. But the biggest names? Silent. Kendrick remained silent. Jay-Z remained silent. LeBron remained silent. And silence can sometimes create more tension than direct confrontation. Because every quiet day increased anticipation. Fans woke up each morning wondering if today would finally bring a response. Social media accounts tracked cryptic posts looking for hidden meanings. Streamers analyzed old interviews searching for clues. Entire communities became obsessed with predicting what would happen next. Would Kendrick respond immediately? Would Jay-Z ignore Drake completely? Would another major artist suddenly enter the conflict? Nobody knew. That uncertainty kept the entire culture emotionally invested. And if Kendrick eventually answered again, many people believed this rivalry could evolve into the most commercially successful rap feud in modern history. Not just one battle. Not just one album. A years-long war. Multiple rounds. Multiple eras. Multiple emotional shifts. At that point, the stakes extended far beyond music charts or streaming numbers. This became a battle over legacy itself. Over influence. Over relevance. Over who truly controls the culture moving forward. That's why older audiences started paying attention differently than younger fans. Younger listeners often viewed the situation mainly as entertainment. Memes. Viral clips. Diss rankings. Online drama. But mature audiences recognized something deeper happening underneath the surface. Because public feuds at this level are rarely only about music. They are about fear. Fear of aging. Fear of replacement. Fear of losing influence in front of millions of people watching in real time. And in today's entertainment landscape, attention is power. Sometimes enormous power. But history has also shown that the same attention capable of rebuilding a career can just as easily destroy it. So now the world continues watching and asking the same haunting question. Did Drake just launch the greatest comeback attempt in rap history? Or begin a war too massive for even him to control?